I'm here to welcome Bernadette Thompson to the show today.
Thank you so much, T. I am so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
And you and I have something in common, and we're both widows. You experienced your husband's death in a very different way than I did, but it opened up a whole new spiritual realm for you. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, tell me about who you were before this happened.
That's a really great way to start. Before my opening, I always say to people, I was kind of a regular person, a mom, raising kids, doing that kind of thing. My work, I actually have been trained in grief and trauma. I worked with middle school kids who struggled on an alternative team, and I also loved ancestry, and I loved doing looking into my ancestors and helping others build their trees. That was kind of my side thing that I love to do. And, I just had this life planned for me, what I thought was going to happen. I also have done elder care management, and I am trained as an end of life doula. So I've always been somebody that has had a spiritual side. I loved learning about ancient civilizations and indigenous peoples and all different types of spiritual modalities. But I still always felt I was just kind of a regular person, like never thought I would ever connect and really have a deep connection with the other side and a deep understanding that it's grown to.
You were interested in all of these same things that you're kind of living now, almost like you were being prepped for what was coming.
Yes. It feels like that. It feels like that a lot. I did really, I mean, I was always into, like when my parents passed away, I went and saw John Edwards. He's a East Coast medium, and it was, not a single thing. It was part of a group. And so it was like, I'm always like, I know we can connect. And like when my parents died, I was able to feel their signs, so I've always had that, definitely felt like numbers connected with numbers. So, the baby steps of being spiritually connected. And I shouldn't even say baby steps because it is a really deep, it helped me, particularly in the beginning when I didn't know I was about to open up. But as life was getting tougher, just seeing those signs, knowing that when I saw, 111s or 333, whatever it was, that they were, somebody was with me, and they were like giving me, like, we're here, just take a deep breath. Taking deep breath is a really great thing. So that's really kind of where I started. And, as things got more challenging, my husband had always he suffered from an addiction. He suffered from alcoholism, and in our whole lives, his family, it was in his family. So we always talked about it, and always were like, okay, we've got to make sure this doesn't happen. And so when he came to me and said to me that he had a problem, I was kind of surprised, and I thought he'd been doing okay, but it turned out that he'd been drinking during the day, and I didn't realize it. And so when he opened that up, it was like the floodgates opened, and the trauma and the chaos came in as he tried to fight his illness. And it truly is an illness, and anybody that has addiction in their families, it is, they don't wake up every day wanting to be addicted, wanting to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. And so there's so much love and empathy that I had for him, but it was chaos. And just, worried about him, worried about me, and, how it was affecting our three grown children, at the time. So when that happened, I leaned back on prayer. I grew up Catholic, not a practicing Catholic, haven't practiced for 100 years, but I did take things with me, and one of them was the rosary. And it was actually John Edward, the medium who I had seen, who said he used it to settle himself before he would go out and meet an audience. He would use the rosary. So I'm like, well, I can do that, and decided to use that as a way of calming myself down. And I would say it at night because it was hard to get through whatever had happened that day, whether it was good or bad. Just I knew the situation hadn't really improved, and so I did that. And this one night, the first spiritually transformative experience that I had was a visitation. And for a lot of people know, but for those who don't, it's a dream where someone comes to you from the other side. And it's so real that you know that this isn't just a dream that you're having in your head. And so it was my great aunt, Sister Lou. And she came to me, and I didn't want to, it was like worse, like the two of us sitting, it was like a Zoom. So, and she was trying to get me to look at her. And I think in my psyche, I knew this was different, and I wouldn't look at her. I kept trying to turn my head. And I remember her holding my hands firmly, and she looked at me and she said, "We hear your prayers." And with that, I woke up. And I realized in that moment that I wasn't alone and that they were with me. And what I mean by they is when I said the rosary, I imagined all of my ancestors who I knew and loved dearly because I'd spent so much time looking them up and understanding their stories. Uh, um, I knew that she was talking about them, about all of them. And so instantly I felt better, like just, okay. Because when we do pray, we're always wondering, is somebody hearing it? And so that was just an amazing thing. And then the second spiritually transformative experience that happened, and maybe like a month later, this one was pretty amazing because this happened when I was awake. And again, it was the rosary that, for whatever reason, was the catalyst. And when you say the rosary, you say it out loud, usually in a soft voice, so not like you and I would be talking, but you say it in an audible voice. And I think it's so you can hear it, and it's just, very settling. So I was saying it, and I began channeling somebody saying it through me. And I realized that it was my great great grandmother from my mother's side, and she was saying it with me in an Irish brogue, which meant that I was saying in an Irish brogue. And I couldn't say an Irish brogue now if you asked me. And she stayed with me, and she said that every time I said the rosary, she would come in. And even when I tried to not say it in a brogue because I thought I was making it up, and that this, there still was a part of me, even though I believed with all my heart that this was true, there's always, when we first begin to open up, that our 3D person wants to say, no, you're just making this up. But she said it months and months that she came. And it was almost until I wasn't using it quite as much. So so that was how, that was the beginning of my opening. And it has continued since then. What I was first thinking, like, it was kind of like the visitation I had. I was looking like, what is going on? Like, I didn't believe that it was real. But then there was something inside me that said it was, because I had the visitation first. And so I had that belief. The other thing was, I was so close. I had done so much ancestry, and I didn't know who it was at first, but I actually thought it was a grandmother or a great grandmother on my father's side, because I had done a lot of work on his side. But when I went to my family tree, which, when you build a family tree, it holds their spirit. It is like that's where you can find their essence in that family tree. And when I went and looked, and my tree was online on like an ancestry.com. And when I looked at it, her energy came right to me. So I knew exactly who it was and was completely surprised because I didn't know much about her. So so I certainly did some more research on her, but still I didn't have a lot of, boots on the ground kind of research for her. But I knew that's who it was. And I definitely continue to get confirmation that she's with me. Often what brings out our a spiritually transformative experience, it can be when we're experiencing a difficult time, grief or trauma, or which we don't go through this life without experiencing it. It's a part of all of our journeys. It just looks different for all of us. And and so I wanted to mention that because even as people who have NDEs, it is their physical trauma that they have gone through where they've actually separated that brings that awakening. And for those of us who haven't had an NDE, it is often something, it's not, doesn't mean that it can't happen without it, but don't be surprised that if you have just had a difficult time and you suddenly feel like you've had this little opening, that's what's happened. So I just wanted to mention that. And as it grew, so they're always around me, and they were around me as I went through David's passing, which was really unexpected. I still thought that he was going to be able to survive this. But it didn't happen. And so they were there for me. And as I went through my grieving process and went through beginning my next steps, as I was trying to decide what I was going to do with my life. I mean, I lost my life's partner. I lost the moneymaker in the family. All of those things. You're suddenly faced with a lot of difficult decisions that you had to make, and they were with me, and I could feel their energy around me. But I began to feel another energy. I think they were letting me know that I had a guide that was coming in. And I think the guide was there the whole time, but I was just like not wanting to look at Sister Lil, or, not wanting to believe. I wasn't really sure. So I was still seeking and still seeking. And, I had a lot of experience because I did work in the elder care management. I worked with older people that were making these transitions, not only to what were their next steps, but also, as I said, as an end of life doula, having that certification, I was able to help them as they were beginning to look at the crossing over. And I think that helped too for me to begin to understand that my guide was with me. But so I just started exploring things. And I had always been afraid. Like, I did cards. A lot of us do, oracle cards. I love doing, having spirit animals. I love Ted Andrews' book so there's all this fun stuff that I was really involved in, connecting myself with people who were spiritual. And but I really wanted to connect with this guide, and I wanted to see if they were there. So I decided to use a pendulum, and I had never used one. I was kind of afraid of them because it was like the old idea of using a Ouija board, and it's like, don't use a Ouija board, So I bought a pendulum, brought it home, and I went to try it, and I said, just tell me yes and tell me no. So tell me yes and tell me no, and they did it. And it scared me, and I dropped it, and I was afraid. So I put it away and just waited and let it kind of settle. And then the next day I saged, and I saged the pendulum, and I saged the space. And then I said, for the highest good. And then I tried it again. And I asked, tell me yes, tell me no. And then I said, are you an angel? And they said, no. And I said, are you a guide? And they said, yes. And I began communicating with them that way. And we communicated that way for a while. They began to teach me. I was reading books. They'd guide me to the next book. I would have all my books out or be online and ask them, is this a good one? Is that? And they became my teacher. And they let me know that they were that they were a higher spiritual being, that they weren't an ancestor, because I asked them all these questions, and that they weren't an ancestor or a loved one, because those are often our first guides, because they're so close to us. And that's why doing ancestry can open you up, because you open up to the ancestors. But they just continued to guide me. And I finally realized, and they've teased me about this, I was using that pendulum way too long. I didn't need to, that I was able to connect with them without it. But I felt like it was my safety till one time we were like out at the grocery store, and um, there was something spiritual there that I recognized was an angel. And I was thinking, I wonder if I should buy the angel. And they told me yes. And that was when I realized that, and it was a Christmas ornament that was, my daughter had just told me that she was expecting a baby. And I saw this angel, and that's when they came to me and said yes. And that was the opening for me communicating without needing to have any kind of, and I didn't need it earlier. I mean, they said, that I was holding on to it a little too long. So they came into my life and have helped me as I've moved forward in my next steps, in opening up to what I'm doing now. They've asked me to be a teacher and to help people understand the process that I went through, so that we all, like what you do, Tia, I mean, is so important. And you're guiding so many people, bringing them in to understand the spiritual love and guidance that is around us. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing now. They told me that I also have been a higher being. So when I came, that this was part of what was my plan. And but they also came because of the deep grieving process that I was going through and everything that had happened to me. And they wanted me to, so they were helping me grow through this so that I was whole again. Because I kind of felt like Swiss cheese. When you go through something difficult, you question all of your, when you have to make decisions, you're questioning those decisions and wondering what the next steps are. And so that was their first goal, was to help me through that, and then to open me up to showing others and teaching others. And I had the amazing opportunity to speak at IANS, and just a few weeks ago. And it was, being able to be with people in the healing room, and to share this knowledge was, I felt like I was finally doing some of the work that I was supposed to be doing.
What kind of messages do they bring to you?
So this is, I don't know. So when I'm with other people, they allow our energy to mix, and the ancestors come in. And so it is the journey that person. So we'll talk and see what the journey that they are on. But the answers that, I'll give you a really special story that helps you understand how deeply loved we are, and how much of that spiritual guidance is around us. When David passed away, I had a sister that struggled with, there was just something about his passing, and how she kind of, I think, felt that she now had to care for me. And it was a difficult, we'd had a loving relationship, but it caused a little bit of I'll say, a rift between us. She had done a few things that felt unkind, and I was trying to be forgiving and not judging her, because I didn't want to be judged, but it was difficult. And when I was working with my guide, we were working on forgiveness, and how to move through those feelings. And this one evening, they had said to me, that they kind of told me that I'd come up to a level of forgiveness, that I had kind of grown. And I didn't understand. So I said, well, do you mean because I've forgiven David? And he had an illness. And they said, no, it wasn't David. And so I said, is it because I forgave my sister? And they said, yes. And then what happened was a half an hour later, my brother called to tell me my sister had passed away. And what my guide was doing was allowing me to know that I'd forgiven her before she passed, so that I didn't take that guilt with me. And it was an amazing, I know it's a sad story, but it was an amazing, deep understanding how much love that they had for me, and how much how much guidance was there for me. And so I share that because it is there for all of us as we learn to grow and to believe that this spirit side is there, and that we really are one of them, and they're part of us, and our willingness to open and to allow ourselves to believe, even when in what we feel in our 3D world, we think that couldn't have happened. I question that. I still go back, and they have to remind me that yes, that happened. I think, it's so funny because even in the time, certainly once the conversation opened between my guide and I knew I had graduated to a different level, that I had moved up to a different level. But even in that, I still questioned it. Actually, yes, they're telling me, yes, I can share this story. I actually, in the beginning, I didn't believe it. And I was afraid that I was connecting with just some spirit. I knew that I had to have, there was some energetic thing going on. And I asked them if they would answer questions for me. And so I got a printout of a Ouija board, and I asked them some yes and no questions to see if they would answer, and they did. But then I asked them, and I said, give me, because I wanted to know that they were a loving spiritual being. And so they they gave me a word, and I realized that it was a like a Jewish word, like an old, and I looked it up, and there was a story about Jesus. Like, I Googled it. I just put the letters in the way I put in exactly what they gave me. And a story came up about Jesus and their family's exodus to Egypt and I know you're the first person I've actually shared that with. I've kind of kept that because I always don't know what people's response would be. But I actually asked because because I was just not sure. And now, I mean, the loving relationship has grown, and this was before my sister had passed away. This was way in the beginning when when it was first happening. But so it seems unreal, but they were able to calm my nerves and let me know that they were a loving spiritual being that was with me. And as I said before, just with the work that you are doing, they can feel this energy coming up. They feel the energy rising, and they want us to share it. They want us to guide others. And with all of not only the ancestral healing that I'm able to do, and ancestral healing, I didn't talk about that. One of the things, the name of my, I have a company called Tell Me Our Story, Ancestral Healing. When we go back and look at our ancestors, we begin to understand their stories, and it tells us more about us. And that knowledge, what they have gone through, and the resilience and the spirit connection that we have with them, it can help us open to the other side. It can help us take those first steps especially for those people who don't really know how to make that connection. Maybe they not, I mean, I had a spiritual or religious background, even though I've always been more spiritual and not, but I had knowledge and I knew things. And so going back to our ancestors is they're part of us. They're spiritually part of us, and we are connected with them through our DNA. And so that is an opening. And then I help people from there to open up spiritually, to explore all of the things, to allow themselves. We all open up differently. There probably isn't anybody on the planet who opened up spiritually the way I did. So it comes to us all differently. And I have studied all different, I've learned about, I can't remember if I told you or not, but just all different types of spiritual modalities and ancients, all of those things, been so interested. And I use that to help people discover where they're feeling, what is calling them, and to help them open in the way that it feels that that's their journey, because nobody, I don't want anybody to follow my journey, because might not give them the same results, but to help them open to learning new things, and then to take those steps forward to um, pass it on, to move it forward, to then become the light for somebody else. As we open, then we help others open.
Why do you think that is happening now?
I think it's their plan. I think that it is part of the idea that we weren't doing it on our own. So that the as spirits are coming in now, I think, and especially your generation, where so many more light workers and people that are more open to it. I think that is the reason that they're trying to now really allow us to rise. And we still have I don't want to use the word battle, but it feels like a battle, because just as I was saying, I haven't shared that with anybody. It's because there is this, we're still pushing back at people that don't want to believe us and want to think that this isn't true. So I think they are bringing people who are I'm in the mainstream. Like, I was not somebody who was it definitely was always spiritual. So I shouldn't say that, because I'm not giving myself credit. And anybody out there that even is just a little bit interested, you're not giving yourself credit to believe that you are part of this journey that they would like us all to be on. And there were, when I look back, I came from a big family as one of 8 kids. And I remember that, my siblings, they were into a lot of, it was all of the hippie kind of, that, I mean, that's going back. But, so there was this little core in this little, but even for me, like, since I've really had this opening and coming out, and it's coming out, I've come out on social media, I'm sharing things that I never shared before. And it is hard, because I know there are people who may think, oh, she's just still grieving. This is all coming from her grief, and it's not. And so it is it's a wonderful experience that I'm going through. And I'm grateful that I am able now, and just allowing myself and not worrying about those that might be like, I don't necessarily believe her. She needs some help. To be honest, I think that is where a lot of people who don't want to be judge go in that vein. They go in that, well, they must have experienced something that they couldn't really explain. And so this is why they're having this reaction. And so, but it's not. And that's what I want people that are listening to know, that there really is this deep, loving connection. and that it is that the support that is there for you, and the love and the understanding of we belong in that world, and that is where we came from and where we will go to, and that we are here to love this world, even though sometimes it's hard. They don't want you to go home early. They would really, like you to stay. And during the hard things, there are a lot of people that ask, "Can I come home?" But it is staying here and knowing that they are here to support us as we grow, um, and just understand this beautiful world that we're part of.
What do your guides tell you about ascension? Do they say anything?
We it is a path that we are all on individually. And that's what they're, okay, I was just gonna, as I started saying it, I'm like, am I saying the right thing? That it is a path that we are all on individually. And as we make that connection, that we will get more information about our own individual path towards ascension. Ascension is part of our journey. It is, but full ascension may not be in this lifetime. And that, so, but they are open to sharing about our journey towards ascension, and allowing, but it is it and ascension, but we're really, as I say that, and what they're saying to me is the feeling of ascending is already with us. So full ascension is something that we can't, I can't feel or know yet, but that we are already in, especially when we're in this group, that we are already in it. So whenever you get, and when when you have that feeling here, when you know that you are in a higher spiritual state, you know that you are in that state of ascension where, and it is just, I think we ascend till we are one with source, with whatever you people want to use for the word of universal love or guidance or God. Um, so that's what I'm getting. As we make progress, as we rise, as we learn more, as we connect, that we don't let ourselves go back down. So because we are in this ascension, this rising, so that we have to, I have to preface that by saying we have to go to the grocery store. We have to do all the things. If you're raising a family, if you're working, there are things that cause us to be in this 3D world. It is hard sometimes to stay at our level that we've risen to, our spiritual level, but that's where you want to be in every day, because that's what's going to keep you moving up, because the more you can stay that. And it doesn't have to be, if people struggle with meditation, it doesn't have to be in meditation. It can be listening to music. I've actually listened to the Moses Code. Have you heard the meditation from the Moses Code? If any, oh my gosh, I actually got it through, now I'm gonna, now I'm gonna forget, Dwayne Dwyer. It was so Hay House, and they had it I bought it, it was like $5. But you can get it in other ways. But it is the Moses Code meditation, and it is the word of the ancient way of spelling the word of God, and has been somehow channeled into a musical meditation. It's beautiful. So just listening to meditation, listening to something, because so many people worry that they can't stay, and I couldn't stay in the beginning. But so that's what I would say, is just try and allow yourself to, when you rise, to stay there, even though you have to go back down, take the trash out, come back. There are things that we have to do, but know that you can to stay there and that you're going to keep rising. So that is what they're saying to me. When I'm shaking my head, it's usually them coming through me.
Can we connect with our guides in the same ways?
Yes, you may. So, for me, I was connected with them before I was connected with them. So we are, um, and we have to, this is where we have to go back to the understanding that what we're seeing, feeling, or sensing, or, hearing that we have to allow ourselves to understand that that could be them speaking with us. And it can, and that's where, we start with loved ones, knowing that understanding that energy is around us, and then being able to keep asking, I want to connect, knowing that if you feel like the chills, like when you get the little, what feels like somebody's putting their hands on your head, or it can be knowing that if you've asked a question and you kind of get that, or if you're listening to something, if someone's listening to this podcast and they suddenly feel that chill, know that that's your spirit, that's your guide telling you, yes, this information was good. And so that's how they can begin to connect. And when it comes to hearing them, it didn't happen the to the point where I'm communicating with them has only been 3 years, but they've been with me for a much longer time. So it is, as you said, ascension. It does take a little while, but somebody else could have it happen right away. And many people who have had NDEs have had that happen, open right up to a spirit guide. So it varies, but yes, there is not a question in my mind that there's a way to understand how to open up and to even just do it, trying to do it on your own, that there are ways to be open. And I was going to say one way, always surround yourself with white light.
Are
Yeah.
there ways that we can kind of gauge how we're doing, signs that we receive, anything like that to know that we're on the right track?
So what I have used, and I've helped people do amazingly, oracle cards, good oracle cards, cards that they feel connected to, is a way for them to open up to you. So uh, I'm not really skilled in the tarot cards, so I don't use those, but I've used many different other oracle cards, because there is a way. Again, you put yourself in a very spiritual state, you ask for guidance, and so choosing a card or a couple of cards can be a way to help you understand where you are on this day and begin to open it up. And also looking, animal, signs, spirit animals and things, using those things, those are tools for them to communicate with us. They're looking for a language that you will understand. So if it's numbers, if you really love numbers, then they are going to continue to show you things in numbers. Like David, my husband, passed on 11/1/17. So it's 111, 1117s. And whenever I see anything that is a series of ones and a sevens, even if it's 117, I know that is a spirit number and that they're with me. So there's lots of ways that they will speak to you. And as you grow, as you learn to understand the signs of um, the feelings, you can begin to ask yes and no questions. So, and if a no is not as easy to understand, a no usually means you didn't get a yes, or can mean that you didn't get a yes. So for example, if you wanted to ask an oracle card, am I on the right path doing whatever it is? And you don't get a real affirmative in there, or you don't get something that's telling you, then um, it may not be a no, but it may be let this go or think about it a little bit, just to, and that is a way to begin the communication until you're able to communicate better with them. But it is very, very, it is possible to take the journey and to bring it to a higher level where you can begin to communicate with them and know that they're there. And eventually it'll be the chills or whatever. It could be, like for me, my crown chakra lights up. Like if I'm somewhere where I'm not really in my spirit, like when I sat down with you, although I was in, immediately my crown chakra lit up, so I knew that spirit was here. So they'll do things, yeah, do things like that.
Do they have
Yeah.
any messages that they want to share with the audience?
Stay there. They are incredibly grateful for you because of the work that you are doing. And for those that are listening, that to be guided by the words that you are sharing with them and the guests that you are having on, because because you are surrounded by a guidance that knows that you have people listening. And so you have you have a voice, and they want those that are listening to understand and hear your voice, because they are speaking through you. And so that message that you are sharing with them, this incredibly loving message that you are sharing with them, is what they want, what spirit wants people listening when they're out looking for other things, that they're hearing a similar tone as to how you are presenting because that will let them know they're on the right path. And to just be careful of the really loud ones, who sometimes are the ones that gather um, a lot of people looking at them, and know that deep down you will understand what is the truth, and you will discover your own truth, and not to let that be your guide.
When you say really loud ones, you mean really loud, like spirits?
I would say people who are um, banging. I would feel like banging, I'm spiritual, I'm spiritual, I'm spiritual, and
Oh,
talking about their way is the best way and you have to do it this way, that kind of. Because spirit wants to come in quietly. They want to come in because that's how they can talk to you, is quietly. So they just want, don't be shiny object. Don't go after the shiniest object. It could be, it doesn't mean not to listen to them. Because if you were drawn to it, and especially if there's a big event that seems like it's a beautiful event, but always go with, surround myself with white light and make sure that, allow me to listen and hear the truth, and to know when something doesn't feel quite right. Like, so pay attention if it doesn't feel quite right. But so that's kind of the way, that's what they mean by um, looking for the truth.
well, thank you. And I'll post your links down below in the video description, but tell the audience how they can reach out to you if they have questions.
Yeah. So the best way is, my website or my YouTube channel is, so my website is tellmeourstory.com. So it's the point of view of the child asking the parent to tell me our story. And my YouTube channel is Bernadette Thompson at Tell Me Our Story. Well, TMOS. So Bernadette Thompson, Tell Me Our Story. So it's my YouTube channel, and I'm on LinkedIn, and not LinkedIn, but I mean I am on LinkedIn, but I'm on Facebook, and so Tell Me Our Story is where you'll always find something. And but coming to the website, there's a way to sign up for a 30-minute free session to hear more if they'd like to. So, and there's a download for them to take a little free download they can take with them and things like that.
Great.
So yeah,
If
but just one thing real quick is I'm really easy to talk to. Don't be afraid to connect with me. That's what I want you
and
to know.
if you had one message that you wanted to leave the audience with today, what would it be?
The message would be one of love and forgiveness and non-judgment. It is so hard to live in our world right now with so much going on, and just try and keep that in your, let that lead you, so that in those times when something does hit you that doesn't feel comfortable, and to just go back to love, forgiveness, and try and be as non-judgmental. It's hard sometimes, but that's my message.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Bernadette, for everything that you're doing to help others and coming on the podcast to share. You are really making a big difference in the world, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tia.